a lot of times the things that stress us out are just the things that we care the most about. And once we realize and look at it from that perspective, it really helps move things forward in a really rational and really healthy way.
Baby, I'm thriving. Oh,
Hey
yeah.
everybody, I'm Laurie Hernandez, and this is One Creative Mind. Today I'm joined by a true champion. Roderick Townsend is a Paralympic multi-gold medalist and world champion in the high jump, an event he holds the world record in. He's also won gold and silver in the long jump, where he's the American record holder, and he's not done yet. He hopes to continue his dominance in track and field when he heads to Paris, France later this summer. Woohoo! He's also a philanthropist and, oh yeah, just an overall awesome person. Roderick, thank you for taking the time to spend chatting with us today. It is great to see you again.
It's great to see you as well, Lori. It's always a fun time when the both of us connect.
Cheers. Yeah, I'm going to hop right into it. I am really curious to know, first off, how is training going for you?
Training is going great. I think that for myself right now, the most important thing is just making sure that I'm doing my part as a dad and as a husband. And my wife has made such a huge sacrifice for our family. So during the last few months of her pregnancy, I just knew that for myself, the most important thing would be making sure that she had the opportunity to start training and getting where she wants to be as we get ready for this Olympic year, since she wants to make another Olympic team herself as well.
That's so incredible. That being parents is just a job in itself. The fact that y'all are Olympians and heading back into training and getting ready for the Olympics, that's mind blowing to me personally. I'm curious to know. I know you have a competition coming up this week. What does that look like when you have a kid at home, especially a newborn?
Everything is just based around his nap schedule and keeping him, happy. So fortunately, my wife and I both train, and I think that's been a huge lifesaver for both of us because we just understand what it entails to be an athlete. Even if it's just during our workouts, I'll do a set and then she'll hold him during our set, or vice versa. But just trying to make sure that he's taken care of is always the top priority. But he's getting a little older, so now he's at the point where he's napping during the whole workout, which is nice. Just out there getting the sunshine and just resting while mom and dad are out there doing the workout.
Wow, well, you guys are superheroes. Literally, The Incredibles is actually based off of your family. So I know everyone is shaped by their background and their own unique challenges, but you've been overcoming adversity since the very beginning. So we're going to shift the conversation a little bit. Go ahead and tell us about how it all started, your background growing up, and what inspired you to embark on this incredible journey.
Honestly, for myself, it was really just a matter of understanding that where I came from, I was always just exposed to people who worked hard. And
Mm.
it's truly what has shaped me because it's never been a stranger. And I've always looked at it more as a companion or just something that benefits me more than anything. My mom gave birth to me when she was 15 years old, and she was always the brightest kid in her class. And she had to stop going to school because of the laws that were in place in Stockton at that time, but it didn't stop her from accomplishing amazing things. And the same goes for my uncle. So growing up, adversity was more so a tool we used to get where we wanted to be. It allowed us to work hard. It allowed us to always understand that if we wanted anything, we had to go out and accomplish it ourselves. So for myself, being born with a disability, it was just something else that needed to be done. I realized that all I could do was play the cards that I was dealt. So when it came time to graduate from high school, I always knew that was something that I was going to do, and I understood that when if I wanted to go to college, realistically, it had to be something athletic based. So I was able to get myself an athletic scholarship to Boise State, and I was able to graduate from college. And I think that the most interesting thing was when I did graduate from college, my uncle is a man of very few words, but the funniest person I've ever known. And he began to tear up, and he said to me, we just wanted you to live long enough to graduate from high school, and that was the norm. Just being able to live long enough to graduate from high school, let alone going to college and graduating from college, and then going on and pursuing a master's degree, and then uh, getting gold medals. And I think that for myself, it's always been about more than myself. It's always been about the people who've helped me get there. And it's so exciting to be at this point in my life and to know that we're all here together and that they can see a reflection of themselves in me because I'm just a representation of all of their hard work and all of their sacrifices.
I mean, the dedication, the resilience, the passion and drive required to be not only an elite athlete, because in recognizing this idea of like, yeah, we just wanted you to live past high school, you surpassed that tenfold, not only through going to college and getting your degrees, you're an Olympian. So it's like you are crashing all of these boundaries, all of these ceilings left and right. There has to be like a parallel mental health journey there as well. And I know at One Mind, we're all about mental health and these journeys, these experiences. And I think a lot of people would benefit to hear from your story. So, what has your own mental health journey been like?
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful question because oftentimes we don't realize what we overcome because our lives are our lives and they're normal to
Hmm.
us. You know, we're the main character in our story. And I've always been the optimist in the silver lining, and that's always been something that I've realized is one of my superpowers. And there have been the valleys. You know, I got cut from my college track and field team. I've, had my scholarship taken away, and you would never know because of the things that I've accomplished and how I carry myself. But that's just because I always understand there's going to be a sun shining eventually. But I think a lot of that comes down to my perspective on things. I remember in 2016, I was in Rio, and during this time, I'm also in grad school getting my master's degree. But I'm also coaching because I'm trying to prepare myself for a life after athletics because I understand that we can only do this sport for so long. So I'm recruiting, I'm the head jumps coach, I'm in my master's program over the summer. I have assignments due, and I'm in Rio. So the day is planned as this. Okay, I have a recruiting call to make with an athlete who's overseas in Germany. I have an assignment due in a few hours as well. And the bus is leaving at a certain time because I have to go and compete in my very first Paralympic Games. So I get an email and it says, hey, one of the buses won't be coming. So you're going to have to get on an earlier bus now. So that changes everything. And I begin to stress out. And in the
I
process of
would have
stress,
cried.
in the process, exactly. And in the process of stressing out, I'm telling myself everything that I just told you. And I begin to laugh because I'm stressing over being at the games while doing a job that I love, while getting an education that I love. And I realized that if anybody could have one of these three problems, their lives would be
Mm.
amazing. And here I am stressing about problems that are blessings, problems that are, things that I've always wanted. So it really allowed me to change my point of thinking and just being so thankful of the opportunity that I was in. And I understood that it was hard and that it was tough, but it was nothing but an opportunity that I was asking for, that I was working for. And I turned in the assignment. I finished the recruiting call, got on the early bus, and went and won my first gold medal. And I think that it's just so awesome to understand that that was such a turning point for me and how recognizable it was in my life. But it's just such a keystone in how I continue to see things. And it wasn't until that point that I recognized that I'd been doing that my whole life. But being under that magnifying glass and under that pressure really allowed me to see, wow, this is something that I can really use to push myself moving forward. Just understanding what a tool and what a skill it is to be optimistic and to always look at things from a different perspective.
First of all, holy hell. Okay, for those who don't know, I know Roderick. We have met at multiple athletic events or sponsorships, you name it. However, I did not know this about you. And I had kind of assumed, I'm like, to even get here, the journey had to have been hard. It was
Hmm.
an assumption on my end. And then to really hear your story, this is wild. And it reminds me a little bit of a therapy session that I had during Tokyo. I remember like I was training for the games and I didn't make it. I had gotten injured, but then had gotten
Hmm.
asked to commentate it. And it was so difficult to commentate the team that I wanted to be on.
Yeah.
And I remember complaining about this to my therapist. And there's a point to this, I promise. But complaining about this to her, and I was kind of getting into this like spiral of like, here's why it doesn't work. I feel like I'm grieving. I don't know how to get out of this. Ah, da, 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 da.
Hmm.
And I remember her saying, it doesn't suit us now to sit in this in the way that we're doing. What is the most useful way we can perceive this situation to get you
Hmm.
through? And then we can look at it later. And it just like, as you were telling your story, I had thought about that question of like, what is the most useful and effective way for me to perceive what's in front of me,
Hmm.
so that way I can get through this and succeed in the way that I want. And just your perspective switch on these
Yes.
are problems that people would love to have. Let me knock them out of the park in the best way that I
Exactly.
can, knowing damn well that it's really stressful. Cheers to you. Not many people would have done that. Like, yes, those things are wonderful, and that is a really stressful experience in any of those situations to be a part of. So, cheers to you for that. That's a really big moment.
Yeah, and I think that, no matter who we are, like you and I, we have these experiences at such a high level, but understanding that, level is just a how we, like to interpret it. However, there are people who have jobs that they jobs that they have to go to, and they have multiple kids at home, and they have all of these things that they have to do, and sometimes it can be stressful, but understanding that when you take a step back and you realize I have a job that I love, I have kids
Mm,
that I would die for, and that I love so much, and when we take a step back and look at things from that perspective, it just allows that time for reflection and just a deep breath and to just be thankful. And I think that, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your life, that a lot of times the things that stress us out are just the things that we care the most about. And once we realize and look at it from that perspective, it really helps move things forward in a really rational and really healthy way.
yeah, and it's like a lot of times the things that we are stressed out about a couple years ago, these are the things that we had begged the universe to give us,
Yes,
you know?
exactly,
It's such a
exactly.
wild thing.
Hmm.
So, keeping that perspective, like, yes, I'm in it, and once I was out of it and begged for this. So,
Exactly.
crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. This does lead me right into my next question, which is like, what are some of your tools for self care, for building mental and emotional strength and resilience? And I know perspective is one of those things, optimism is another. Do you have other things that you do?
For myself, is compartmentalization. I know that
Mm.
a lot of people like to hear the Kobe Bryants and the obsessiveness that the Michael Jordans have with sports. However, for myself, that isn't necessarily nearly as effective. I'm more the LeBron James approach, where when I'm not on the track, I'm dad, I'm husband, I'm
Mm.
the fun friend to be around. I like to be able to save that obsessiveness for the track. So that period of time where I'm on the track, where I'm training, that's where I'm zoned in, that's when I'm
Yeah.
locked in, and it's hyper focused, and I love that. I feel like at this point in my career, at this point in my life, if it were any other way, it begins to fizzle. And when it's not focused, when it's not directed, that's where, you find the fall off. But by myself being able to spend that time with my family, we're having a good time, we're watching movies, we're taking walks. I feel like that is just enough break away from track to really enjoy myself as a person. And when it's time to go back to the track, I have all the energy I need to focus it there because I'm not burnt out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially like you mentioned, all these different hats that you wear. When we look at that compartmentalization, you mentioned before you're a coach, you're a mentor to other aspiring Paralympic athletes. So describe the philanthropic work that you're doing and what people or what you want people to know about having a disability and competing at the highest levels or of any level.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of starting a nonprofit organization for people with visual impairments in Arizona specifically, just to have a place to train. There are a lot of health risks that come with people that come to people with disabilities, and I'm working with some athletes who are Paralympians and just people in the community to be able to build this up because it is a representation of them. So to not have them be involved would be a disservice, to say the least.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm also working with other Paralympic athletes who I'm coaching, a world record holder And it's been so much fun to be able to be what I want to see in the sport of Paralympic track and field, and see in the community that I want to continue to build. I'm just super excited to be the old guy who's still crushing it, and just trying to always set the tempo and be an example, because I know that a lot of people want to be in the position that I'm in, so I have to do a really good job at being that example. And sometimes it's hard, but I also want to show people that it's not about being selfish, and that's why I take my role so seriously, because I want the sport to be better. And in order to have the sport be better, we have to have the people in that sport be better. So I just want to be able to help the younger guys be better people first, and those better people are going to be better athletes.
Yeah. I wish I knew other coaches who had this perspective, because this, I mean, one by one, minds like yours are what shape the future of sports for everybody. And I'm grateful to know that you're a massive part of it. So big thank you
Thank
to
you.
you. On the flip side of that, I'm really curious to know what your perspective on rest is. We talk about kind of
Mm.
wearing all these hats, about doing the best that you can, about, all right, when I'm on the track, like it is 150, like I am in it. When I'm home, I'm dad. What is your relationship to rest like? What does that mean to you? Does it work? Some people it doesn't work. I don't know.
For myself, rest is just as important, if not more important, than the actual training itself. Without rest, there is no training. So I try to make sure that I'm always well rested. I've been working with my coach for going on to year 11 now. And the very first year working with him, I was working with a Olympic decathlete, and I'm trying to hang and try to prove myself during the workout, because this is the best decathlete in all of NCAA. He just won the national championship, and he just got back from the Olympics. And the workout was a 500, so run 500, walk 500, run 300, walk 300, run 200, walk 200. We do the 500, and I'm walking back. I walk my 500 meters, and I'm ready to start the 300. And my coach is like, "Why are you already done with your walk?" And I was like, "I'm ready." He says, "No, you're not. You look where Kurt is. Look where he's at." He was like, "You should not be 300 meters ahead of him. You should have not finished that rest as quickly as you did. What's going to happen is the next rep, he's going to smoke you." And that's what he did, because I wasn't rested enough.
He said the
And
next rep he's gonna smoke you. That's
exactly.
crazy.
And he went on to smoke me that rep and the following rep, because I wasn't rested. And that for me was just a huge, like, okay, let's do things differently. So, and that was just one instance, but I understand that that one instance of a workout is not a monolith. It's not isolated to that. That's a principle that I can use in all aspects of my life. And
Mhm.
doing that in all aspects of my life has been very beneficial. And my wife and I, we live in Phoenix, and we get a lot of sunny days in Phoenix. However, we get some of those overcast days as well. So when it's overcast and it's raining outside, we close the blinds, we have cocoa, we might grab a donut, and we just enjoy the weather. Regardless of what's on the agenda that day, that's what we do. And it's important for us to be able to have that time for one another. And it's so special. And it's one of those traditions that we're always going to be able to look back on and appreciate.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know not just the listeners, but I also picked up a lot on that track story, especially. I know I feel like in today's day and age, the instinct to give 110% in this very moment, right now, and not preserve any energy for later is kind of the
Hmm.
in thing. At least that's what it feels
Yeah,
like for me, especially in the gymnastics community. It's like 200% every single day. By the time we get to Thursday, we're burnt out. We can't move. We're exhausted.
exactly.
And then no progress gets made. Spend the
Hmm.
entire next week resting, like fall behind. So
Yeah,
that's a really good visual to understand what is rest, what does it mean to pace yourself, and why is it important. Thank you so
yeah.
much for sharing that.
Thank you.
So we're focusing a lot on present day. I am curious, if you could give your own younger self some mental health advice, what would it be?
If I could give my younger self any mental health advice, it's really tough to say. I appreciate all of the lessons that I've been able to learn. I know that's kind of cliche, but
Mm-hmm. No.
I've always been very proud that like my my biggest superpower is that I've been able to learn from other people's mistakes. Whether it was my mom having a kid at 15, I knew that that wasn't for me. Um, my uncle was in a gang when he was younger. He lost his leg. I knew that wasn't for me. And I feel like any advice would have done my journey a disservice. But I guess that what I can say is that one thing that would have benefited me more than anything else is to just be able to truly embrace my disability at a younger age.
Mm,
I think that that's something that would have allowed me to be more accepting of who I was, but not just more accepting of who I was, but had I been able to accept my disability, I would have been a much better athlete at an earlier age, a much better person at an earlier age, because you have to understand what your weaknesses are before you can begin to progress, you know. And I think that especially looking at it in terms of athletics, there were a lot of things that I could have been better at had I made alternative
yeah.
accommodations for my disability.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that once again my coach has been he was a lifesaver. He allowed me to realize that I did have a disability, and recognizing that disability, we made things work better.
Mm,
And I think that that's something that had I known that earlier, I would have just been a lot happier. And I was always a very happy person, but I think that that's the only insecurity that I really had. And to be more accepting of that would have definitely changed more lives along the way, I believe.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. We are nearing the end of the interview. We've got about 2 questions left. So I'm going to see if I can judge them up, you know. Can you give us 5 tips or things that you do that bolster your mental health in good times and in challenging times?
For myself, I have truly been working on the first thing, which is just, especially with my wife, and this is just my personal life, obviously, but just trying to listen rather than listening to respond.
Mm,
Especially as a man, I'm going to just say it like we have the tendency to try to fix things often, and just understanding that sometimes people don't want things to be fixed; they just want to be heard. And just trying to be better at that myself is something that I'm really putting a lot of emphasis and focus into. And from there, just trying to be more patient and move slowly when possible is something else. We travel a lot, we do a lot, and oftentimes moving fast isn't going to do anything but end up having you lose time in the long run. So just trying to be patient. And I know you asked for 5 things, but those are 2 really big ones right there for me.
you don't have to. I mean, they got that's a lot. They hold a lot of weight. What you just said. You know, I recognize a lot of what you talked about in the first one because I'm usually someone when there my mom is a social worker, so it's
Okay.
like I was raised where if there was a problem there's a solution, and
Yeah.
she kind of embedded optimism into my child brain. It's like if there's
Yes.
an issue there is always a way to move through it, and
Mhm.
that was awesome. However, it's like I would solve things and get left with this lingering feeling. I couldn't figure out what it was,
Mhm.
and I just remember like one time my partner and I were talking, and she was venting about something and I had brought up a solution
Yeah.
immediately. I was like, bro, look at all these
Yeah.
options you got. You got A, you got
Exactly.
B, you got C. And she said, I don't want your solutions. I want your space.
Mhm.
And I was like, ugh,
Yeah. Yeah.
ugh.
Oh my goodness,
That is
yes.
such an interesting thing to think about and to bring up because that is also something that
Yeah.
I'm working on. Like
I'm so
not
happy
just a
that you can
man thing,
relate.
but
I'm so happy you can relate because and I'm happy that you mentioned that because mention it like, you know, I mentioned earlier that I'm an optimist, and it's so great to hear it from that perspective because that is, like you said, much different than it being a man thing. And that's why I even kind of hesitated to say it. But at the same time, like, you know, that's what I always assumed it was. So it's cool to hear on this conversation, like, wow, that makes even more sense than what I initially was feeling it was, you know?
yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
listening to actually listen, that is a really
Yeah.
common guy
Who would have
thing.
thought? Yeah.
However, I also have the same problem. But yeah, it's like, I'm usually like the nauseating optimist. I'm usually like
Hmm.
everything is gonna work out. I especially as part of my my training for Rio. It was
Yeah.
like ominous positivity. Everything must work out. I have no choice.
It's almost like a devil's advocate of goodness.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
if this
like,
is good, I promise you, look at it this way.
yeah, yes. And it's like sometimes it's like the weird instinct of things are going to go right.
Hmm.
I have no choice or say in
Yeah.
this. Like, I
Hmm.
firmly believe that the best is yet to come. And it's like, it's so funny being around either my like pessimist friends or
Yeah.
realist friends. And like, what are you doing? And I'm like, people don't understand how difficult it is to be an optimist.
It's so funny because there are two ways that my week of training, I have a competition on Friday, right? There are two ways this week can go. Either it could be the worst week of my life of training, and I'll realistically believe, oh wow, my body knows that it's competition week. This is going to be a great week. It's not trying to waste any time with this on practice. It's going to be a great competition. Alternatively, I could have a great week of training and I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be a great competition. My body knows that it's competition. Like, no matter what the situation is, there's, and I truly feel and believe that way. Like, it's makes no sense, but I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that like the the possibility and the capability
Mm,
to hope that something good is coming is such a vulnerable place to be, and we live in that all the time, and that's
hmm.
something that I wish a lot of times people will look at us optimists and be
Yeah.
like, y'all are naive,
Yeah.
y'all are not paying attention,
Yeah.
y'all are not in the present moment. And it's like, do you know how vulnerable and difficult it is to hope,
Hmm.
to
Yes,
keep the door open that things can go right, well knowing that things can also go wrong? It's a balance.
it
Like,
is.
it's that is I am so glad that you mentioned that. No, I'm with you on that.
I love it. I love
All right, so wow, great last question.
it.
What gives you hope?
Oh man, failing everything. There's always hope,
Mm,
and in my life, I feel like there's so much has gone wrong, and I'm still here.
yeah.
And something that I've been saying a lot for the past few months is, today probably wasn't my best day, but tomorrow might be. And
Mm,
you know, it's just truly such a good feeling. There's always something going on. But especially now with my son here and my wife here, it's
yeah.
just always something to smile about. And my mom said to me recently, one of the most profound things. I was dealing with a situation recently, and she says to me, "Son, what's the point of having faith if you never have to use it?" Oh, and I was like,
Goodbye.
"Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, yeah,
Ooh, that's going right in the therapy bucket. I have
yes,
therapy after this, and that's
yeah,
going right to her.
mm-hmm, yeah."
Mm. Well, on that note, that's I'm gonna be thinking about that for like 2 weeks. Roderick, this was a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your awesome story with us, sharing your insights, your mental and physical journeys. I am so excited to keep an eye out on all of your competitions. Best of luck in Paris. Everybody will be cheering you on.
Thank you so much.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.